3 lines at the bottom of the page. We're discussing a fellow who's davening, and the Yetzer Hara is coming on with a vengeance. Yetzer Hara is working harder now than it ever works. And this fellow is thinking to himself, wait a minute, the Alter Rebbe said that when a person davens, the Yetzer Hara is supposed to go to sleep, and dafke, when I daven, the Yetzer Hara is stronger than ever. Right? That's what he thinks to himself. When I daven, the Yetzer Hara is stronger than ever. So he's thinking to himself, and there's something very wrong with his davening. First, he thinks maybe he should be asik. But Allah tells him, don't be a shaita, you know, tzaddik. And then he thinks, maybe I'm a Rasha. Maybe there's something bad about me that I'm not familiar with, which is why when I daven, Yetzer Hara, instead of going to sleep, is bothering me so much. So Alter Rebbe, no, you know Rasha. Never then. When you try to daven, what is davening like? Davening is like two people engaged in a wrestle. Right? Davening is like two people engaged in a wrestle. Like they stand there and they hold one another. And every once in a while, one of the two thinks he's got an edge, he's got a window, and he tries to flip his opponent over. At that instant, his opponent reacts with a thrust of his own. Davening is your Nefesh HaLekis is making a thrust. So the Nefesh HaBahamis is reacting. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your davening, it just means you got to fight. It's important to understand, says the Alter Rebbe, that when you daven and you get machshavas zaros, the world makes a big mistake. And the world says that when you're in the middle of doing something good and you get a bad thought, it's that you're a hypocrite. It's that you don't mean it mit hanemes. Because if you meant it mit hanemes, how could you get a bad thought in the middle of davening? Says Alter Rebbe that that's true, not true. Shatayim, people make a mistake. To argue, min nefilas hamachshavas zaros, the fact that a bad thought enters the mind of the Beinani, miklau, they see it as a proof. She'ain tfilasam klum, that the davening is worth nothing. She'ilu ispalo karoiv and had they davened appropriately and correctly. Bad thoughts will not enter the person. Says Alter Rebbe, wrong. This argument that if you get a bad thought in the middle of davening, it's a proof that you're a hypocrite would be true. If a person was only one neshama, he amispaleles, the same neshama that davens. He amachsheves v'hamaheres amachshavas zaros, the same neshama which is davening also thinks the bad thoughts. Says the Rebbe, but that's not the case. The real truth is henstein nefashes, they're two souls. That are waging a war with one another in the brain of a person, as we had in Tanya chapter 9 in Perek Tes, that call achas, each one of the two souls, the divine soul and the animal soul, each one its desire and its want is lim shel bay, is to rule over the person, and to affect that the brain should be memula mimena, filled with her, with that particular soul of Ada alone. And therefore, the fact is as follows. All thoughts of Tate and fear of heaven come from the godly thought. And all worldly thoughts, and certainly Teifa thoughts, come from the animal soul. When you think bad thoughts, your godly soul is forced to think them as well. And naturally, when you think good thoughts, your animal soul is forced to think them as well. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't have Rachmanas on the animal soul. He only has Rachmanas on the divine soul. So the Alter Rebbe, so when you daven and get bad thoughts, number one, the solution is to keep fighting. You're trying hard, Nefesh HaBahamis is trying harder. It doesn't indicate that your davening is worthless. It certainly doesn't indicate that you're a Rasha, you've done an Aveda, which you haven't done Shuvah, that you don't know it. It Pashat means you have to fight. And again, I repeat, it's taka true that the Alter Rebbe said in Perek Beis that you could put the Yetzer Hara to sleep when you daven, but it's a war. And it's a tough war, because the harder you try, the harder she tries, but eventually you could put it to sleep. The bottom line is as follows: when you're in the middle of davening, you get bad thoughts, don't start questioning yourself, don't start doubting the credibility of your davening, just fight. And the solution is as follows: a person is davening with kavanah. That's what it says in the Luchatikin. A guy who's an evil man. And he's talking to him. Why is he talking to him? Yeah? Why is he talking to him? A guy's in the middle of davening and his friend comes over to talk to him. Sometimes there's something to say. Otherwise he pushes it once again in his nerves. Kedei lebal is simply to bewilder and confuse him. Of course, this is the solution. Do not answer him neither good nor bad. Make yourself like you're deaf, you shouldn't hear him. Well, the Kayam Ashakostov, to fill what the Pasuk says, and the Gemara brings it down, Altan Ksil Be'ivalte, never answer a fool when he acts stupid. You know why? Because when you answer a fool, when you act stupid, you become like that. When somebody comes along and he's harassing you, if he's harassing you because he wants to know, you have to talk to him. But if he's harassing you because he's a chutzpahnik and he wants to make trouble, the solution is simply to ignore him. The same is true with Machshavas. Machshavas is harassment of Nefesh HaBahamis. It doesn't take away from the credibility of your davening at all. It doesn't take away from the credibility of your davening whatsoever. Nava then, Yitzhak Hara is davening, he sees you're working hard, he's working harder. Ignore him and keep going forward. And the same is true over here when a person davens. Al Yashuv U'Uman never answer the Yetzer Hara. Don't get into the Machshavas Zoros and why. Don't become a psychologist and a psychoanalyst and a Freud machine in it. Ignore the Yetzer Hara. Vishum Tainu Maina, no arguments, no response, neged Machshavas Zoros, against the bad thought, just push it away. When one wrestles with the filthy, misnavel gamken, he becomes filthy himself. You may defeat the Yetzer Hara, but you're going to get ungeschmutzig. Don't engage. Keep davening. Make yourself like if you don't know and you don't hear. The thoughts that have entered your mind. And by keeping on focusing on what you're doing, you should remove them from your mind. And you should add power. With the power of your kavanah. Stop. The eitzah to bad thoughts and davening is to go forward. You should know there is an inyan from tshuva. Like we had in Tanya Perichavov at the end. But tshuva is not during davening. Tshuva has to be a special time. During davening, you got to daven and only daven. And when you're davening and only davening, you have to focus on the Eibishter. When the bad thoughts come, you keep going. I mean, I would say that sometimes in the middle of davening, the bad thoughts are so bad, the Poshet can't. So then you have to stop the words and think Tanya. You know, it helps to be mitzayed, that Tzudas Pnei HaKodesh, visualize the Rebbe's face. And if it's in a mokum, you're allowed to be mafsek, you know, it helps say a kapitel tilim. It's harder comes to middle of davening, one of the eitzes that I know, it's not just true in middle of davening, anytime, say a kapitel tilim out loud. Tilim afon kol. Not quietly, it helps. Because it's easier concentration. You're davening, you're drinking Pirish Hamilis, you're talking to the Eibishter, it's a different kind of concentration. To say a kapitel tilim afon kol, the important thing is not what you're saying, is that you're getting excited. It's b'chala eitzah, when the Yetzer Hara comes on strong, wherever you are, stop what you're doing and say a kapitel tilim, or think Tanya and so forth. Now, what happens if all this fails? Yeah, a guy comes out to Rebbe, he's depressed. He's depressed. The immediate guy's depression is, he's depressed, how come davening is so hard for him? Before that we had a guy who was depressed, how come he has Avedis, Machshavas Zoros? Before that we had a guy who was depressed, how come he has Avedis? Before that we had a guy who was depressed because how come he has Tzaris? And Alter Rebbe gave each one an eitzah. What happens if a guy is so depressed and so burdened that he can't get away from it? A person can't get the bad thoughts out of his mind. They burden his mind very much with great power. And nothing helps. You're in the middle of davening and you cannot get away from the bad thoughts. You're in the middle of working and the depression is consuming you. You know what you got to do? When all else fails, beg for mercy. Very interesting. These last 6 lines of this Perikov Ches is God Ananda Zachin Gansen. When you're fighting with Yetzer Hara and you cannot beat him using any of the techniques the Alter Rebbe employed till now, there's one more solution. Say to the Eibishter, Hab Rachmanis, I can't. Or the Yashbal Nafshel Adeshem, lower your soul before God, V'yischanan le'yizbarach, and plead to Him, blessed be He. B'machshavte, and you thought, L'racham Allah, to have Rachmanis on you. B'racham av amarubim, with His great mercies, K'racham av abonim. Like a father has mercy on his children. Now, why does a father have mercy on his children? Because Hanim Shachem Meimaycha, children come from his father, right? Similarly, we are called our Eibishter's children, and we come from his brain, and therefore we ask Hashem for mercy, He will show us mercy. V'kocha, in the same way, Yeracham ad Hashem al nafsheh, Hashem al rachmanas on you. Because we're Hashem's children, our neshama comes from Him, and we say to the Eibishter, Hab Rachmanis, He will have Rachmanis, La'atzila, to save it, from the waters of sinfulness. Ulemaneh yas, Hashem is going to help you get rid of your machshavas zoros for His own sake. Ki chelek hadeshem mamish, Ameh Yidna, a portion of the Eibishter mamish. So when you can't get the machshavas zoros out with a fight, Poshet beg the Eibishter Rachmim, and the Eibishter will help because He loves you, because we're a piece of Him. And tomorrow we're going to start learning the chelek of Musar of the Tanya, which is even different.